Welcome to the FARcast here at Chadron State College. I'm Daniel Binkard, here with my co-host, Alex Helmbrecht, and we're sitting on the Dean's Green today with Alaric Williams, who is, I think, our newest dean, certainly a new face here at the college. Alaric, the Dean of Professional Studies and Applied Sciences, and great to have you on the show with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. It's a nice warm morning. I think it's supposed to get hot this afternoon, so we won't take too long with this. Alaric, tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and where did you go to college?
So I grew up in a small town called Stamps, Arkansas, smaller than Chadron, actually, about 12 to 1,300 people. It's in the southwest corner of the state of Arkansas. Our big city was Texarkana.
Okay.
And so grew up there, left after high school, went to college at Texas A&M University Commerce, earned all of my degrees there, earned a bachelor's in kinesiology and sports studies, stayed there and earned a master's in counseling and student affairs. And then I continued there while working and pursued and earned my doctorate in higher ed administration, higher ed leadership.
Great.
So I believe this is your first job as a dean, but where else have you worked? And what, your academic background sounds pretty diverse. What have you all done before you came here?
So that is correct. This is my first position as a dean. At my previous institution, I was a department head over two separate departments. Now, the thing that I've learned is here, department chairs aren't really considered administrators, whereas my previous position, we were considered administrators. And so I did that for a few years. Prior to that, I was an assistant professor at Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas. Stayed there for about 7 years, went through promotion and tenure, was promoted to associate professor, and then left a year after that and went back to my home state of Arkansas. While there, I was a department head. I went in as an associate professor, and then after a resignation, I took over the position as department head. But prior to my academic career, I was in academic advising. That was my very first position in higher ed. I was an academic advisor. I also served as a mental health counselor at a college counseling center, and then also worked some, in both of those roles, worked alongside Res Life, admissions, did some recruiting, and so I've got both backgrounds in student affairs and academic affairs.
And how have you found your administrative duties different from your teaching?
Administrative duties, let's just say I'm pulled in quite a few places at the same time, and it's definitely not as flexible as my teaching schedule was. As a faculty member, I could go and work my office hours. I'd stay there, a few hours a day. Each day. As an administrator, once I became a department head and a dean, I'm putting in probably 10 to 12 hours a day. And that's just how I've always been. I've really never been an 8 to 5 person anyway. But that's just it's a little busier on the administrative side. Let's just say, not to take away from the faculty, because I know faculty are busy. But I'm pulled in several directions, and sometimes at the same time as well.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
So, Alaric, you haven't been here very long now. Has it been a month or 2 months?
Let's see. Today is the 14th. It'll be 2 months tomorrow, and it doesn't feel like 2 months. That's
Happy
sure.
anniversary.
With everything else going on around us,
Yes.
Yeah.
time's flying by and going by at a crawl. Well, in your short time here so far in western Nebraska, how do you find it compares to like Texas and Arkansas? You know, whether it's the institution, the weather, the community, whatever.
You know, there's so many differences that I've found in my 2 months, which I've got to say, it seems like it's been longer than 2 months. So one of the first things is the weather. It's a little drier here, not as humid as Arkansas and Texas, where I was. But one thing I found, people are a little more friendly here.
We try to be.
Do what?
We try to be.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I think I've gotten used to waving at people when I pass in the car, driving down the street.
It'll even happen on the highway. Just wait.
And so I wasn't, as I said, I grew up in a small town, and so we did that in Stamps. You know, everyone knew everyone, and you waved. And so when I got to Texas, that was non-existent. You didn't do that. And so I'm having to learn that all over again. You know, people are just really, really friendly here. And my wife had told me that. As I said, you know, she's a native of Nebraska, and she always talked about how nice people were in Nebraska. So the weather and friendly people would probably be the biggest differences. Yeah.
What have you come to enjoy about Chadron, the community, in your 2 months since being here? I know it's not a ton of time to get out and explore, but what are your thoughts about the community itself?
Well, I will say I do like the cooler temperatures. You know, when it was snowing last week here, friends and former colleagues in Arkansas and Texas were telling me it was in the 80s and 90s there, and it's like snowing here. But I like being able to go somewhere. Everything is 2 to 5 minutes away. It doesn't take me that long. So I really do like that. And also like about the community, going back to the friendliness, you know, I will go to Walmart or I'll run and work out at the local high school track, and there are no strangers. I mean, people will just start up a conversation with me, and I like being able to walk to work if I want to be able to. So, yeah, those are some of the things I like.
Great.
Oh, Alaric, what made you decide that Chadron State College was the place for you?
Well, as I said when I interviewed, I looked at the opportunity. Obviously, once I came and visited the campus, got to talk to individuals. It was just I felt like, you know, this is a place I could fit in. You know, everyone, as I said earlier, nice, friendly, hardworking individuals. And I also shared that when I interviewed, I shared that my wife actually has family in Alliance, which is, you know, right down the street from here. And so I remember talking to them, and they always talked about this part of Nebraska was God's country. And so I said, well, you know, if that's the case, I definitely want to be there. And so when I came out and visited and got a tour, I just thought, yeah, this is definitely a place I could see myself spending quite a few years here. And so I haven't regretted that decision at all.
Now, the individual you replaced, Dr. Jim Powell, is now your vice, or now your boss. He's the vice president for academic affairs here at CSC. Any pressure there?
You know, it was he and I were talking one day last week, and I said, and this was just a casual conversation, and I said, you know, I kind of feel like getting up to bat after Babe Ruth bats. You know, that's kind of how that is. But Dr. Powell has been great. Really do like working with him and for him, and he's just been an excellent supervisor in these 2 months, and you know, onboarding me and introducing me to new people, and I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, he's definitely a great guy. We've had him. He's a friend of the pod.
Yes, he is.
He's a good guest.
I actually went back and listened to some of them, and I found the one that you all had him on, and I think it was just after he had taken over the position as vice president. So, yeah.
Alaric, some of your research interests, you mentioned to me, are diversity and inclusion in higher ed, as well as African American males in higher education. Talk a little bit about that.
So this kind of goes back to when I first started my master's degree program. I had done some research with another faculty member, and we were looking at just higher education in general, specifically African American or Black males in higher education. And it was actually one of the things that kind of sparked me to pursue my doctorate degree, because I learned that there weren't many Black males who were pursuing doctorate degrees. And so I've always just had an interest in that. I've also had an interest in counseling, and when it comes to mental health issues or mental health concerns with African American males, and not just African American males, but people of color in general. And so it's just been a passion of mine. My mom and dad both graduated from high school, but did not have a college degree. And that was one of the things that they said from day one. I was in second and third grade talking about where I was going to college because I felt like I didn't have a choice. That's what my mom and dad said. And so when I got to college, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me, and I wanted to know why. Why was that the case? And so that was sort of how that was sort of the foundation, or how my interest in that speared. And so my dissertation actually looked at attitudes of African American males regarding counseling or help-seeking behaviors, and reasons why they chose to seek mental health assistance, or reasons why they didn't.
And what did your research find? What were your conclusions?
So I compared predominantly or historically Black colleges and predominantly white institutions, both African American males enrolled in both of those institutions. And so, I could go all day, but I'll give you the short version of it. Basically, Black men at HBCUs were more comfortable seeking help from individuals that they felt like they could trust, individuals that they thought, this is someone who looks like me. I can tell them secrets and won't have to be afraid of getting in trouble. Whereas African American males who were enrolled at predominantly white institutions did not seek mental health assistance because of that cultural mistrust. It was the attitude that if I share something with you, then I'm going to probably face some kind of consequence behind that. And so those were basically the results.
Alaric, what are some of your interests outside of work? I understand you enjoy crime podcasts.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I can talk more about my interest in counseling and higher ed or crime and podcast. I'm a huge Crime Junkies fan. I listen to probably 3 or 4 different podcasts that are all dealing with crime and true crime obsessed. I started listening to one a couple of weeks ago that's called Park Predators. And so it showcases individuals who have committed different crimes in like national parks around the nation. And so, yeah, a lot of people have said, you should have gone into criminal justice and not education. But it's always been a passion of mine ever since I was a little kid. I can remember reading a book I think I was a 4th or 5th grade, and it was called A to Z Encyclopedia of Serial Killers. And
As you do.
yeah, and
Light
so,
bedtime reading.
yeah, and so I'm glad I'm saying all this now that I've got the position, and didn't say this before I was hired. But I love watching documentaries on crime and I like to get into the way that individuals think. And so I was sharing with some people a couple of weeks ago that I was watching a documentary on Ted Kaczynski. And so I was looking at, just his thought process and how his upbringing affected him. And so that kind of goes into why I'm always interested in those types of things. I love to work out. I used to CrossFit before I moved here. There's no CrossFit gym here, but I still do CrossFit workouts either at home or at the high school football stadium. So if you drive by and you see some guy out there doing burpees and running or air squats, it's probably me.
When you mentioned as a kid reading about serial killers, it reminded me that I always enjoyed watching Unsolved Mysteries with my parents.
With Robert Stack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet if I still hear that theme song, I'd probably get chills.
Yeah, all comes back.
But the thing that always freaked me out the most was the artist sketches of
I know.
of the alleged perpetrators.
Yeah,
that was always the worst part.
That was pretty cool. And I used to watch that with my mom and dad, actually. And so, it was just, one of it has always been an interest of mine. A quick funny story. My senior year in high school, we had to write a paper every 6 to 9 weeks. And every paper that I wrote dealt with either serial killers, or I remember writing one on the World Trade explosion from 93, not 2011. And so my teacher called my parents and, was concerned about this. And, my mom said, "Oh my goodness, that's just him. We're not worried about that. That's what he's interested in. So it's what he likes to do." So, yeah, I've always been that way.
Well, there's certainly not a lack of content, unfortunately. There's so many podcasts and different things.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. For me, I enjoy the police procedural aspect of those things. Whether it's like a crime book or a novel or whatever, and you're definitely showing like your counseling colors and that of where your interests lie in it. So it's great that there's that spectrum available for whatever this topic might be, even a gruesome one like this.
That's true.
Absolutely. And like I said, I can go all day long. I will call my wife and we'll talk about different things. And she's like, "Oh my goodness." We were out for a run. This was several months ago. And she said, "I'm going to go ahead and go ahead of me and I'll catch up." And I said, "Oh no, I've heard an episode of that on Crime Junkies." A guy did that, left his wife and the wife got attacked. No way. So it's like I'm always in that mindset.
Now, earlier when you walked up here to the Dean's Green area for the podcast, you showed off your socks. You're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Yes, indeed.
So obviously you root for them. Are there any other sports teams you cheer for?
I obviously growing up in Arkansas, I'm a Razorback fan. Football, basketball, track. Living in Texas. I lived in Texas for over 20 years, and so I became a Texas Longhorn fan, believe it or not. I know that's probably not as popular here in Nebraska, but I love the Dallas Mavericks. I've been a huge Mavs fan for several years, and also like the Texas Rangers, although they're not doing so well. And I'd be probably disowned if I didn't mention the Cornhuskers. I married into a Cornhusker family, so I've become a huge Cornhusker fan here lately. I'm just hoping they never play the Razorbacks. So.
Gosh, they
one there.
probably haven't for a long time.
Oh, I suppose not.
No, they have not. It was the 60s, actually. The last time they played, I did my research
So
on
just
that.
so you know, there was a football coach here, I think in the 70s. His name was Jerry Welch, who played on the same Arkansas team that Jerry Jones played on.
Oh, wow.
That won the national title in like late 60s, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 64 or 66 or somewhere like that.
And so he coached football here, and I'm sure you'll see it, but it's that famous photo. He's holding a trophy. He's got a huge mustache and curly hair, and he's holding a trophy of a Longhorn. And the Eagles won the Boot Hill Bowl.
Yeah.
Which was played in Scotts Bluff, but so that's the CSC's connection to Arkansas right there.
Okay,
and of
cool.
course, the president, Randy Ryan, has all 3 of his degrees from there too.
Yeah, whenever I saw the position, like anyone, you start looking at the institution and researching, and I looked at the president and I saw he was from Arkansas, and I was like, all right, we got a Hogs fan there. So yeah, definitely.
Well, Alaric, I think we're at the time of our podcast. We get toward the end here, and we have some quick-hitting questions for you. So perhaps first thing that comes to mind for some of these, a favorite movie?
Favorite movie would probably, that's kind of hard to narrow down. I'd say I've got 2 favorites, though. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, it's a
with Clint
classic.
Eastwood. I love Westerns, so... and I like Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I love that movie.
2 of my favorites right there. Very good.
I saw that there's going to be a prequel series about the nurse.
Ratchet.
Nurse Ratchet. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I hadn't heard that.
And I'm trying to think the actress who's going to play her. I just saw it the other day, though. But yeah, I'm sure it'll probably be interesting.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know more about that.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
If you could have a conversation with any fictional character, who would it be?
I probably would say, again, hard to narrow down, but one would be Dexter from the show Dexter. I'd love to have a conversation with him. And then probably the Oracle. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Matrix.
Oh, sure.
The lady, the Oracle, who predicts different things. I'd love to sit down and talk with her.
Every time I see that scene, I just really get in the mood for chocolate chip
yes,
cookies.
Indeed. Yeah.
They do it right.
Yeah, she made some good-looking cookies in that scene.
But, that makes me think, is there a historical figure that you would want to have a conversation with?
Historical figure, I'd probably, I'd love to sit down and have a conversation with Jesus. I think about, the people during those times who got to interact and yeah, that definitely would love to.
All right.
I was kind of hoping you'd say Robert Stack.
Yeah, he would be next.
How many states have you been to?
I have been to 29 of the 50 states.
Oh, you're doing well. Very nice.
Yeah.
What would be like the next one on your list, vacation-wise or whatever?
I'm not sure. I've been, now that I'm in Chadron, I had never been to South Dakota prior to living here. And so I've made 2 trips there. And so my wife and I have been talking about going to South Dakota to look at the monument.
Right.
And I just lost the presidential...
Mount Rushmore.
Rushmore,
yeah,
yes.
Yep.
I've never seen that before, and neither has she. And so that's one of the places we're talking about visiting.
Oh,
next.
yeah, certainly worth the trip.
I really feel like we're fortunate out here with the places we have in western Nebraska and the Black Hills. We're kind of blessed with outdoor activities. If you want to get hiking or if you want to get up to the mountains or explore the plains, we've kind of got all that mixture out in this region.
Yeah, it's sort of a, I never knew all of this existed. It's kind of a hidden gem.
It is.
Really.
Yeah, definitely. Alaric, what's the best advice you ever received as a college student?
Ooh, I'd say I'm thinking back to a professor who actually ended up serving on my dissertation committee, and I don't know if this was advice, but he always told me you can never measure what's in someone's heart. And so that came about when we talked about testing, and specifically the GRE test. And so that goes back to not many Black males pursuing a doctorate degree. And so I had some fear behind that, but I knew I had the passion and the desire and the will to do it. And so he always told me you can never measure what's in someone's heart. You have that desire in your heart. You'll obtain that goal. You will achieve that goal.
Yeah, those are great words.
What word comes to your head when you think of Chadron State?
I'd say 2 words. Actually, 4 words. I'm sorry. Hardworking and student-friendly.
That works.
Yeah, definitely.
Those ought to withstand the test of time. If you're saying that after 2 months, that ought to hold true for 2 years or 10 years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Alaric. We know you're a busy guy on campus and still probably trying to get your feet wet and learning all that CSC has to offer, but
Yes,
definitely
indeed.
Thank you for your time.
Well, again, I thank both of you for allowing me the opportunity to come in and chat and talk a little bit about myself.
Of course.
So,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
That's Alaric Williams, the first of 3 Dean interviews we've got this semester. It's going to be a fun one. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.